Hello, I'm Caiti Steele, Southwest Climate Hub Coordinator and Director of the ARID project at New Mexico State University.
And I'm Tanya Burnett, the Education and Outreach Specialist for the National Drought Mitigation Center in Lincoln, Nebraska.
And I'm Julie Elliott, here today to walk you through the current GrassCast maps for the Southwest. I recently retired from the Natural Resources Conservation Service as a rangeland management specialist.
There's a whole bunch of collaborators that make GrassCast possible, and the slide you can see is a quick tour of their logo.
During this video, we're going to discuss GrassCast forecast for the Southwest, Arizona, New Mexico. Just so you know, GrassCast is a tool that gives you forage forecast for the growing season. And when you go to the tool, you'll see 3 maps. Each map considers a different weather pattern for the growing season. Julie will be explaining how to best pick which map works for your location. But first, Katie will give a quick overview of the long lead weather forecast for the Southwest.
Thank you, Tanya. And to find the seasonal outlooks for temperature and precipitation, one of the easiest ways to do this is just Google 3-month seasonal outlooks and National Weather Service, and the top result should be the 3-month outlook. If I click on that, it takes us to the main page, and we can see the maps here and for temperature and below for precipitation. So taking a closer look at that precipitation map, this was created June 15th, so it's about 2 weeks old now, but it's still relevant until the middle of next month, the middle of July. So it's not looking too positive for Arizona and New Mexico at this point for the growing season. We've got a 33 to 50% chance of below normal precipitation. I would like to highlight this is just leaning below. This can change quite rapidly. As we all know, the monsoon is actually quite difficult to predict over this region. So fingers crossed we get a year like last year, but at the moment it might be wise just to lean towards caution when we're thinking about the amount of precipitation we're going to get for the next growing season. Now we look at the temperature, it's going to be pretty hot. It's pretty hot already. We have got a 60 to 70% chance of above average temperatures in most of Arizona, and that's pretty certain. And then over the rest of the region, the Southwest region, it's a 50 to 60% chance. So we're looking for a pretty hot summer, and this is also going to have an impact on the growing season. Over to you, Julie.
Great, thank you, Katie. Now, before we dive in, I just want to mention we did do a detailed information about GrassCast in our last video. So to see that information with more background about GrassCast, please see our June 16th video on the Southwest Climate Hub YouTube channel. Before we dive in too deep on Southwest, I just want to mention, as you noticed from the maps, or we guess maybe, that we're talking mainly about New Mexico and Arizona. Now, the Southwest is unique in that there are 2 distinct growing seasons. There's a spring growing season that's driven by weather conditions from January to May. And then there's a summer growing season driven strictly by conditions from June to the end of August. Those of you in eastern New Mexico will have to decide if you have a continuous growing season from spring until fall, or if you have 2 distinct growing seasons with virtually no overlap between the spring grasses and the summer grasses. If your growing season is continuous, you'll want to look at the Great Plains GrassCast video and maps. Whereas if you have 2 distinct growing seasons, then this video is for you.
How has the summer growing season conditions been so far in the Southwest, Julie?
Well, it looks like someone shut the spigot off for most of Arizona, western New Mexico, and southeast New Mexico. There we go. These maps are depicting the percent difference from the average or the mean precipitation between January 1st and the date indicated from 1980 to 2022. So on the left-hand side, that's the difference between January 1st to May 30th. In the middle, January 1st to June 12th. And then on the far right, January 1st to June 26th. What this year has been like compared to the past 30 plus years. seeing this time series pretty well spells the story. The green areas, or above average cumulative precipitation, those areas grew in New Mexico, but they shrank drastically in Arizona between the end of May, the left-hand map, and June 12th, the right-hand map. But they have started a hasty retreat through the rest of June for both states. The red areas are steadily expanding.
So with these red areas expanding and indicating overall marked deficit in precip for our region, what's that going to do to the GrassCast maps?
Well, actually, I was a bit surprised about how optimistic they are, particularly in Arizona. But then I had to remind myself that it's still very early in the growing season for the Southwest. So the left map in the outlook is above average precipitation for the rest of the growing season. The middle map is near average precipitation for the rest of the growing season. And the right-hand map is with continued below average precipitation. There's a lot here and it's pretty hard to digest it. So let's just take a look at each map individually to reduce how much information we're all trying to process. So here's the above average precipitation map. Now remember, these maps are representing the percent difference in expected growth compared to the long-term average. So if the spigot were to be turned back on, the GrassCast model predicts that the expected grass growth could really turn around with significant areas in the two states reaching at least that 5 to 15% more total production than the long-term average, which is depicted by the light blue color. The vast majority of the area reaches 15 to 30% more total precipitation than the long-term average, indicated by this medium blue color. And then there are even some areas exceeding 30% more production than the long-term average, which is this dark blue color.
Thank you for explaining that, Julie. What if precipitation just manages to reach near normal levels?
Well, the blue areas evaporate like water on a hot day. There's still pockets of some areas of above average production expected, but most of the area retreats to near normal production, indicated by this green color. Significant areas even retreat into the 5 to 15% less total production than the long-term average, indicated by the yellow color. And Eddy County, most of it, even crosses the territory into 15 to 30% less total production than the long-term average, with near normal precipitation.
Well, I can imagine what continued less than normal precipitation might do to the GrassCast maps. More yellow, more orange, more red even.
Oh, you hit the nail on the head, Caiti. The areas that could expect above average production really retreat in front of the advancing less than average production wave. Much of both states are forecasted to see significant losses of 15% or more, as indicated by the yellow and the orange and even red areas. Now remember, these are forecasts. So each one of you needs to consider the current precipitation trend, the health and productivity of your rangeland, and other information sources before you take any drastic actions. Those of you in areas where a loss is predicted, even in near average conditions, might want to be paying a little closer attention to your rangeland and even making a plan for what you will do if the spigot does not get turned back on soon.
GrassCast is forecasting total production, Julie. How do I, as a livestock owner, translate that into grazing loss?
Thanks for that question, Tanya. It's a very important difference that many of us, range professionals included, often overlook. We're not talking grazing loss in GrassCast, as you just said. We're talking about total above ground grass production. So let's just say in an average year, the rangeland produces 1,000 pounds per acre. Well, to maintain the health of the rangeland, to protect the soils, to protect the plant community, half of that needs to be left in place. So half of 1,000 pounds is 500 pounds. We can take half, but of that other half, that other 500 pounds, really half of that gets trampled or is lost to environmental losses, it's urinated or defecated on. So really the animals have access to about a quarter of the total pounds per acre or the total production. So that's 250 pounds. Let's say GrassCast is forecasting a drought year, as some large areas we just looked at with below average precipitation are in the Southwest. So we got 30% less total production. So that would be 700 pounds per acre. But if a healthy rangeland under good weather conditions needs half of the vegetation left, we still need 500 pounds left to protect that soil resource in a drought year. Maybe actually we really even need more than 500 pounds, but we'll say we need to leave that 500 pounds as a minimum to protect the plant community, to protect the soils, protect the microbes that live in the soils, and to keep everything intact. So that leaves 200 pounds left to take. The animals are still out there trampling the grass, urinating and defecating on it. There's still environmental losses. So really, we can only allocate 100 pounds to the livestock. 100 pounds versus 250 pounds. I don't have to tell you that's more than a 30% loss. That's a 60% grazing loss, not the 30% total production loss. So just keep that in mind as you're looking at GrassCast. The numbers do not translate directly into grazing losses.
Thanks for that explanation, Julie. That makes a lot of sense. So if you want to find GrassCast online, just go to grasscast.unl.edu, or you could just type GrassCast into your favorite search engine to find the website. On the website, you can access the zoomable feature that will let you see more specific information about your area, including how much precipitation has been received so far this growing season and might be expected for each of the 3 scenarios based on historic data. Thanks again for watching our video, and please reach out with any comments or questions.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. We'll see you again in 2 weeks.